Riff Energy.
Welcome back to Big Riff Energy, episode 48. It's Tuesday, February 13th. All kinds of exciting topics today. I'm going to be hitting Kerry King, the new band called Kerry King, and their new song. Going to be doing a dive into Acid Bath from Louisiana and all offshoots of Acid Bath. Going to be strictly addressing questions that were brought to my attention via email. And I'm also going to discuss the new album by Chapel of Disease, one of my favorite current bands, and one of the few, if only, bands whose name is a combination of not one but two Morbid Angel songs. I will remind you that the topics of discussion on this podcast are largely decided by you, the viewer or listener. And you can email me at bigriffenergy@gmail.com. Hit me with questions or topics to discuss. Go ahead and subscribe if you hadn't done so already. We're approaching 3,000 subscribers, which is not too bad. Purely independent thing, started from the ground up. Appreciate everyone who has supported this from day one. We're coming up on a year, which is kind of hard to believe. But I'm going to dive right in, man. A lot of people have been asking me about the Kerry King stuff. This is going to be tricky for me. I'm going to try to approach this as if I'm 16, 17 years old, mega super Slayer fan, don't know a whole lot about the inner workings of the band and the inevitable drama that seems to happen when you're in a metal band for 30, 40 years. I'm going to try to forget all that. I'm going to try to refrain from inserting my personal opinion on Kerry King as much as I can. He is a public figure. I have heard some firsthand accounts that sort of could color my opinion on the dude one way or another. But I'm going to try to just approach this as a fan. And yeah, just go off of the music, what is public information, and that sort of thing. And just analyze the situation as a fan who has no skin in the game, because I don't have any skin in the game. So, man, okay. I'm going to try to not insert my personal opinion on anything. A lot of times the public perception of a person is not accurate to who they really are at all. So I'm trying to factor that in and walk an objective line here. That being said, I am going to go through something that I discovered when I was about 16 or 17 years old, which is, to me, no offense, if you were going to have to replace a member of Slayer, I would say the most easily replaceable member of Slayer is Kerry King. Yes, I think he's more replaceable than Lombardo. I ride or die for Dave Lombardo. You know, as a fan of the music, but also as a fan of the dude. But I'm trying to set all that aside. I think just objectively, Kerry King is the most replaceable member of Slayer. And I'll tell you why. Looking at their discography here, looking at the songwriting credits, I only really look at Show No Mercy through Seasons. After Seasons, it's whatever. And I will acknowledge that, what's that album with Stain of Mine on it? Diabolus or whatever? Jeff primarily wrote that one. The new metal sort of semi-stinker album. And from what I understand, Kerry was kind of like over it with all the new metal stuff. So respect to that. But looking at Show No Mercy through Seasons, most of the best Slayer songs were co-writes between Jeff Hanneman and Kerry King. A lot of really good Slayer songs were written by Jeff Hanneman alone. I'm talking about the music. Lyrics, it's all over the map. Kerry King, to me, between Show No Mercy and Seasons, wrote 4 songs that are good. Again, this isn't counting what he co-wrote with Jeff Hanneman, but, you know, he wrote the first song on Show No Mercy, Evil Has No Boundaries. That's a good one. He wrote Show No Mercy. Decent. I'll count that as good. They wrote Haunting the Chapel together. All of those songs are written by Jeff and Kerry together. Hell Awaits. Praise of Death is the only song on Hell Awaits that was written by Kerry King alone. Hanneman did write the lyrics, but who cares? Rain and Blood is where, okay, the best song Kerry King ever wrote, by far. A collection of what appears to me to be Dave Mustaine inspired riffs. Kerry did a stint in Megadeth. I'm talking about Piece by Piece. Incredible song. Try learning that one on guitar. Yeah, but I hear a lot of Dave Mustaine influence in that. It's real angular. That is not a typical Kerry King song to me. It's a lot more complex and ambitious left-hand stuff. Most of Kerry's stuff is not super duper busy on the left hand. So that's the best song Kerry King ever wrote. It's one of the best Slayer songs. I'll give him that. Yeah, Jeff Hanneman wrote all the other good songs on Rain and Blood. You know, some of them were co-writes, but Hanneman wrote Angel of Death by himself. Hanneman wrote Altar of Sacrifice, all the music. Hanneman wrote Reborn. Hanneman wrote Postmortem, Raining Blood. Musically all on his own. South of Heaven, he wrote basically everything. Kerry, I think, was checked out for that one. He's going through a divorce or something, if I'm not mistaken. And then Seasons. This is where we're getting into sketch territory, and the sketch territory seems to be the songs that were written by Kerry. I'll put it this way. Jeff wrote War Ensemble, Blood Red, Spirit in Black, Dead Skin Mask, co-wrote Hallowed Point, co-wrote Born of Fire, single-handedly wrote Seasons in the Abyss. So it looks similar to Rain and Blood. I don't really care so much. The next album's okay. What? Divine Intervention. Yeah. Your boy KK wrote Killing Fields, which is cool. He wrote basically the whole A-side. A lot more writing credits on that album, which isn't a bad album, but it's no... I mean, there's no songs like Postmortem on there. And from there, it's just kind of more and more downhill. Yeah, God Hates Us All has some okay stuff on it. Hanneman wrote Disciple. I mean, that's easily the best song on that album. Yeah, whatever. I don't get too far off into it after that. Not that interested in late period Slayer. And I do believe that Kerry King wrote all of Repentless. All songs written by Kerry King and Tom Araya. So I think it's safe to say that King wrote the vast majority of the music on that one. And that's one of the worst albums ever made, in my opinion. And I don't know who was writing the lyrics, but yeah, embarrassing. I would have quit the band before I put my name on any of that shit. So that's kind of a precursor to my overall feelings about the Kerry King situation. Granted, he's been kind of the driving force of the band for a long time. He's probably made a lot of really sound business decisions behind the scenes. Again, I'm trying not to let personal information and personal opinion enter into this. Just trying to be objective. So first of all, the band Kerry King, this man has miraculously inserted himself into a situation once again where he might be the most replaceable member of the band. I'm speaking about musically. Obviously, there's name recognition. There's bills to be paid. You can't call the band Mark Osegueda, even though I'm probably butchering his name. I'm sorry. Even though, you know, he's probably offering up more substance and more of an interesting aspect of the music. Okay, I'll say this. That single they released is a lot better than I was expecting. It's a lot better than I was expecting. It's better. I would say it's better than anything on Repentless for sure. This is kind of a super group. You know, these dudes have been around for forever. I mean, Phil Dimmel is like a staple of that whole scene. Boss Staff's played with everybody. Yeah, these are not like hired scrubs, which I think is just so hilariously transparently douchey to name the band Kerry King. It's just such a, it just shows you how shit works, you know? I don't like that. That turned me off of it instantly. They should have a band name. You know, if it was Kerry King and a bunch of like kids who hadn't done shit, just backing him up, and he was singing and he was like writing all the music. Maybe he's writing all the music. I don't know. Who cares? Yeah, I don't know. Even then it would be kind of weird to name your band Kerry King, but it's particularly weird. And like I said, transparently, it's just indicative of how the shit works, man. Just lowest common denominator seems to prevail. Mark is doing a great job on vocals. The song's good. There's nothing wrong with it. I listened to it once. I probably won't listen to it again. It just seems, what is Lars yelling at James in Some Kind of Monster? It just sounds stock to my ears. That's the first thing I thought of. It just sounds, with the exception of the vocals, I think the vocals are great. I probably like Mark's vocals even more than Slayer vocals since Rain and Blood, honestly. He's doing a really good job of doing like aggressive shouting type stuff, and then the more kind of operatic hitting notes, really singing, that kind of thrash vocal. Like a, you know, Chuck Billy, something like that. So yeah, the vocals are the best part by far to me. I couldn't hum. I listened to it the day it came out. I don't know when that was, maybe a week ago or something. I couldn't hum you a single thing that happens. I think the lyrics are kind of childish and juvenile in the same way the lyrics on Repentless were, so I wouldn't be shocked if Kerry was like contributing there. Yeah, I don't know, man. Look at the cover. Look at the cover of the Kerry King album and look at the cover of the Deicide album. And I'm not sure if they're AI album art, but it's just unremarkable stock. Oh, an evil face. Oh, I'm rising from hell. Okay. Yeah, there's just far more relevant music being made in that vein. I couldn't fathom like listening to this new Kerry King stuff in the same world where Rain and Blood and Seasons and Hell Awaits exists, and you can just listen to those. So that's it, man. I don't know. As much as I don't want to factor in like my personal feelings about certain things, I think it's super douchey to be like airing your bandmates out in public. I don't care what happened. You know, that's little kid shit. Get a hold of your fucking emotions, dude. I don't know if it's like the human growth hormone fucking with them or what, but you don't fucking blaspheme Dave Lombardo. I don't give a shit what he did. I don't care if he slapped your mama in the fucking face. You don't blaspheme Lombardo, period, man. I want to tell Lombardo's story. I think I've told portions of it before, but I saw him do a drum clinic. It was fucking awesome. Got to hang with him because there was like not that many people there. Actually, it was in Phoenix, and I got to hang with him afterwards. This is the day before I started tracking the first Spirit Adrift album, and I brought a pair of drumsticks for him to sign. I played drums on all the early Spirit Adrift stuff. Some people may not know that, but I was at this Lombardo drum clinic the day before tracking started for Chained to Oblivion, the first album. And yeah, I was chatting with him just briefly, and I said, hey, man, when we were kind of done talking, I was like, yo, I got these drumsticks. I'm going in the studio tomorrow to start laying down drum tracks. And Dave's Cuban. I don't know if y'all know about Santeria and shit like that, but I was like, dude, could you put some vibes on them, some Santeria type shit, something? And he sort of lit up, but he was like thinking, and he was covered in sweat. He was like drenched in sweat because he had just done this whatever hour-long drum clinic. And he took my drumsticks and rubbed them, each drumstick under each armpit, and got them just like soaked in sweat. And those are the drumsticks I used to track the drums on the first Spirit Adrift album. And I broke one of them tracking like the take that we kept of the last song. So he did something. He put something on him. But he was just such a gracious guy, such a humble, gracious, super nice guy. I've heard nothing but great things about Tom. His little brother Johnny is kind of a staple around here in Texas. Super nice guy. Yeah, I don't like, it's childish, weak, emo fucking bullshit to go talk to some random member of the press who are, if it's between the press and guys that you're in a band with for 40 years, the press is the enemy. Relatively speaking, it doesn't have to be like, not every journalist or music writer is the enemy, but I'm just saying, as a matter of principle, why would you, to some fucking stranger who's basically a member of the opposing team, disparage your brother? It doesn't matter what happened. And anybody that knows what happened knows who the fucking douchebag in the situation is. And it ain't Lombardo, man. And it's not Tom. I said I wasn't going to get my personal fate, but this shit's all public, man. This guy can't keep his fucking mouth shut for 30 seconds. He can't conduct an interview without looking like a fucking emo child. So, I don't know. The music is like, the reason I'm talking about this other stuff is because there's not much to talk about the music. It's pretty fucking unremarkable. I'm super psyched for the other guys in the band. That's a solid setup. That's a good check. Nothing to be ashamed of. They should all be super proud of the work that they've done and the work that they're still doing. And you know, at this point, Kerry's done his time. Whatever anybody feels about him is kind of fucking irrelevant. He's earned it. He's put in his time. He's put in his suffering, his bullshit, putting up with the trappings of the whole thing. So whatever. I'm not trying to rain on his parade, but that's my feelings on it. He's written 4 good songs. All the other good songs he wrote, he had Jeff Hanneman right there with him. And to me, Slayer's all about Lombardo and Hanneman, man. That's the magic of that band. And unfortunately, that'll never happen again. And this ain't no replacement. So I'm going to move on to a new topic of discussion, Acid Bath and their adjacent projects. I think it might have been my buddy from Brazil last time asking me to talk about sludge, and he mentioned Acid Bath among others. So I'll talk about that, man. I think Down was the first New Orleans band I heard, probably. Either Down or I Hate God or Crowbar, one of those. And Acid Bath came probably pretty shortly after that. I think I heard Down, I Hate God, Crowbar, probably Soylent Green, and then Acid Bath maybe a little bit later. I know I was driving by the time I heard them. And okay, skip ahead like a minute if you don't want this band potentially ruined for you for forever. But it took me a minute to get into them because when I first put it on, I listened to the first album, When the Kite String Pops, right here behind me. The music was like, oh my God, this is evil and scary and sludgy and nasty. I love it. The vocals came in and it made me think of Godsmack. So, but it's a fine line, man. I mean, Godsmack and Alice in Chains vocally isn't that far off, you know? And actually, I've revisited that second Godsmack album within the past couple years. And in the context of what was popular back then, late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, a lot of that junk that was coming out, Godsmack is like the lesser of all those evils. That band has some pretty objectively redeemable qualities. But when I put on this Acid Bath record, I was not expecting Godsmack vocals. And, you know, it grew on me. And I like the second record maybe even more. And I got this other record, to me, the best Acid Bath adjacent album ever made. And I might like it even more than the Acid Bath stuff, Agents of Oblivion, which is Dax, the singer of Acid Bath. And I believe his name is Mike Sanchez, the guitar player. Was Jimmy in? I don't know. It's like 2 or 3 guys from Acid Bath. And it's a lot more I don't know if it's a lot more melodic, but it's more like straightforward and cohesive for sure, which is neither good nor bad. It's just a lot less ADHD, more of a straightforward rock vibe, but definitely the peak of Dax Riggs singing to me. And he's since become, you know, one of my favorite singers of all time. He's got a great scream. He has a great brutal vocal, one of the best. And he has one of the best singing voices in metal or hard rock or whatever. Yeah, man. Once I got it, I really got it. If you want to hear me talk about Acid Bath a little more, I did a video for Revolver, like top 10 bands of the 90s or something like that. And I really cheated. They wanted me to talk about the 90s. I didn't. So I cheated. I put Trouble on there. Like I put a lot of bands that were really technically more 80s bands on there because I'm not like particularly enamored with the 90s. Honestly, there was some good stuff, but I think there was even more good stuff in the 80s and 70s probably. But anyway, go check that out. And I talk a little more about Acid Bath. Yeah, they only put 2 records out. When the Kite String Pops, which is really crazy. It's like all over the place. You know, Sammy, the guitar player, went on to do Goat Whore, and he's in that band Ritual Killer, really extreme metal bands. You know, Dax went on to do stuff like Agents, which was a lot more melodic, his solo stuff. So it was really like an eclectic array of influences. You have everything from, you know, Sammy was probably listening to, I would imagine, Morbid Angel, Incantation, Mayhem, stuff like that. Really extreme stuff. Dax is kind of more rock oriented, and you mash that up. The lyrics, like Dax's lyricism is very singular. There's no one that's ever written lyrics like him. It's because it's kind of extreme metal lyrics, sort of, but it's very poetic. It's got the psychedelic, sort of disorienting, avant-garde angle of like Roger Waters, Syd Barrett, Pink Floyd type lyricism, but it has like the gore and nightmarish like mutilation and gross, just the most disgusting, like violent imagery you can imagine. That's almost akin to like Clive Barker or H.P. Lovecraft or somebody like that. I'd say there's even like some beat poets in there, Burroughs, and maybe even like a little bit of Bukowski. But then every once in a while, he'll come out with like a straight up Leonard Skinner on steroids line, such as, "Yeah, motherfucker, I'm high and I'm thankful just to be alive." I mean, you can't beat that, man. That's Dope Fiend from the first album. That's one of my favorite songs ever. That's one of the best songs to come out of Louisiana or the sludge metal scene. If you know that song, you just heard the riff playing in your head when I said those lyrics. The second Acid Bath album, I would say, is a little more like, the first one's all over the place, dude. There'll be like a death metal song. There's like a country song. There's a punk song with the sludge part in it. There's blast beats that go into moaning psychedelic weirdness. It's just really like all over the place. The second album, Pagan Terrorism Tactics, it has all those elements, but the songs are a little more clearly defined as songs. They've really like solidified the whole thing and made it cohesive. That's not to say it's not just as extreme. It's got those psychedelic, weird, violent, nightmarish lyrics, and yeah, it's great, man. And Dax and Sammy will trade off vocals. Dax's scream is a lot more like chesty, mid, low range, and Sammy's got like a more of a black metal, like screechy thing going on. It's just cool. Really cool rhythm section. That it's got that Louisiana thing, grooves. I don't know. I think everybody knows about Acid Bath at this point. It's a shame, you know, the bass player, Audie, I think is how you say his name, died, got hit by a drunk driver, and they ceased to be a band. So the offshoots of Acid Bath, mention Agents of Oblivion. That's a super important record in my life. Maybe my favorite offshoot of Acid Bath. I do dig Goat Whore, especially the first 2 albums. In fact, I remember cutting school when I was like 18 with this kid, Josh, who I think he is. So we had an off-campus lunch and came back to school. We had debate class together, and he had either like eaten an edible or drank like weed tea or something, but it was the first time I'd ever heard of like edible weed. And I mentioned I don't even like weed, but he did. But we drove to Tulsa, and this guy was like on Mars. And we went to Tulsa 2006, I guess, to see Goat Whore. And this was right after Zach Simmons, the drummer, joined. So I was 18. I think Zach's a year older than me, so he was only 19. I'll never forget it. And we pulled up to the venue. The first thing that happened, there was like a line of people. My buddy Josh opened my car door and just puked all over the street there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We watched Goat Whore, and I bought like 3 or 4 shirts. I was in my senior yearbook a bunch in Goat Whore shirts. The one with like the naked girl with the razor blade and angel wings with all the blood splattered everywhere, and like the Jägermeister ripoff logo with the goat and the upside down cross. I'm in my senior yearbook wearing hella Goat Whore shirts. So yeah, I love those first 2 albums. I ended up sort of making friends with Zach later because he was a Tempe dude, and I would run into him in Arizona a lot. Super nice guy. Ended up meeting Sammy and Ben in Baton Rouge last year. They were super nice, gracious guys. Yeah, all nice guys. TA is a Texas dude. Run into him all the time. They're just, they're like the Motorhead of extreme metal. They just keep fucking going. They don't branch out too far from the formula, which isn't a bad thing. You know, I love the first 2 records, and then remember whatever record opens with a song, I think it's called Apocalyptic Havoc, where it just keeps, it's like super Motorhead vibes, and it just keeps getting faster and faster and faster and faster. I love that record. I honestly just kind of lost track. I'll listen to their records when they come out, or I'll catch like a video on YouTube or whatever. But they're just a solid working class. You know, they got the Clutch thing going on. They're just working class. They just go, 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 go. It's all quality. They put their heads down and fucking work, man. And I respect that big time. So other offshoots of Acid Bath would be Dax's other stuff. After Agents, he did, I don't know, he was in a band called like, what? The Bunny Men? No, the Elephant Men or something. Dead Boy and the Elephant Man or some shit. There's some cool records they made, but his solo stuff, the standout to me is that record. I think it's called We Sing of Only Blood and Love. It's got like a pair of lips on the front with blood coming out of them. And dude, that is a good record. Demon Tied to a Chair in My Brain. That's a song title. Living is Suicide. That's a song title. I used to go see him a lot doing the solo stuff when I lived in Phoenix. One of my best friends, probably the best friend I made in Phoenix other than my wife, my friend Retta. I would go with her and her mom, who's like an old school Irish rocker chick. She saw Thin Lizzy back in the day. She saw Sabbath back in the day. I think like on Volume 4 or something. Real certified rocker. Me and Retta and her mom would go see Dax Riggs. That was like our ritual. And I can't remember if I have told this story before on here. Possibly I did on an early episode. But one of the things that made me get my shit together was hanging out with Dax and having a moment, some kind of dissociative episode on Dax Riggs. Poor guy. And he was super cool about it. He was freaked out a little bit, but very sympathetic. I do remember that. And yeah, I'll just say he was very sympathetic to what was going on with me. And I think he recognized what was going on. And when you're writing songs called Demon Tied to a Chair in My Brain, obviously he's no stranger to those kind of struggles. And I heard the dude is like kicking around in Texas. I heard he's kicking around in the Austin area. Actually, I don't know what he's up to, but I used to love going and seeing him do a solo thing. I think an Acid Bath reunion would be one of the most epic things that could happen in music right now. They're doing the Soylent Green reunion, which I think I might have played a small role in. I think my friend Mercedes might have played a slightly less small role in. I need to ask her. I need to ask her how pivotal her involvement was in getting old Tommy Buckley and Brian Patton back together. Psyched for that. I wish they would do it with Acid Bath too. So yeah, they're whatever. They're a legendary 90s Louisiana band. They encapsulate everything cool and creepy and unique about Louisiana and the 90s and bathtub drugs and walking around with no shirt and no shoes on and living in an area where they'll let you come in and buy a sixer with no shirt and no shoes. Nick Z from Alaska. Hey Nate, I'm a newish viewer. Just recently found your channel by happenstance and I enjoy your insight into touring music and life in general. Super excited for the new Enter Arma. So I'm glad to hear it's looking to be amazing. I'll always advocate and defend that band from gatekeeping metal dumbasses. If you're into that new Sovereign LP, check out Condor from Norway. Unstoppable Power. So yeah, I reviewed the new Sovereign album a couple episodes ago. It's great. It'll be hard to beat this year for me. So if you like that, check out Condor, Unstoppable Power, another Norway band. This guy says it's the best aspects of Sodom and Thrash, but upped. Also check out the recent Inculter record, Morbid Origin. That's a tongue twister. It's straight thrash metal, but the songwriting is excellent. Both bands are from the same scene as Sovereign. Thanks for keeping the spirit of metal alive and the positivity always there. Hails from Alaska. Okay, cool. Thanks for the recommendations, man. Condor, Unstoppable Power, and Inculter, Morbid Origin. Appreciate you, Nick. And yeah, I've been jamming the new Enter Arma. Not out yet, but they just can't be classified. You can't hold them down, man. You can't pigeonhole them. If you like their previous work, I'd say the new one has all of that, everything that's going on all their previous albums, plus pushing the envelope to places that they haven't before. It's great. It'll be out at some point this year. Hey, Nate, it's Justin from Phoenix. Ooh. Okay, this is my buddy Justin, who was a Spirit Adrift supporter from day one, man. Ran into him at every show we played, house shows, a staple of the Phoenix Underground. Here's what Justin says. I recently found the podcast and have watched a couple episodes as they pop up and appreciate the takes you have and the perspective with them. Always respect the work you did with Gatecreeper and Spirit Adrift in their own ways. Anyway, I'm writing after listening to you talk about Argo Slint, a band musically I take a lot of influence from. Being half black, I understand anyone from that band probably wouldn't like my existence, but I'll never meet them, so it makes no difference to me what their ass-backwards view on my people or culture are. Justin, I don't even think those guys like their own existence. I never thought I'd be in a position in life where I'm gatekeeping white supremacy, but I don't think that Galal dude even, I don't think he would qualify in most white supremacist circles. Not that I give a shit, but like I probably wouldn't qualify at most of them either. I'm a genetic mutt for sure, but it's weird to me that a dude who most white supremacists probably wouldn't accept as being a white guy is in a band pushing a white supremacist ideology. It's just so confusing. So I wouldn't take it personally, man. I don't think they like their own existence. Okay, Justin says, that being said, I ended up joining up with Tony, playing second guitar in Skull Crush, and only released one demo before calling it. It didn't get much attention, and I still don't think it's been added to the metal archives either, but the songs were very much influenced by the riff style of Argoslint and early In Flames. I'll leave a link to it if you're interested in listening to it. Not sending this to gain anything, but rather I think you may get some enjoyment from a couple songs in the triumphant melodic death metal style. Maybe you'll like it, maybe not. Hopefully it makes you feel something. Cheers and all the best for the future. Yeah, Skull Crush is a great band from Phoenix. They put a record out that Jeff Owens, who used to be in Spirit Adrift, recorded. I wish I could remember the name of it. But it's kind of like a Phoenix supergroup. Our boy Tony, he's like sort of the mastermind behind Skull Crush. And Alex played on that record. Alex, who is now playing bass in Gatecreeper. And so Justin played on the 2022 demo, I think. I listened to it when you sent this email. It's really good. I hear a little bit of Argoslint. I hear a little bit of early In Flames, for sure. Great riffs. I urge everybody to check it out. YouTube, look for Skull Crush demo. I believe it's 2022. But great band, man. That record, yeah, Blood Moon MMXXII. Okay. Yeah, it was uploaded by the Death Madness YouTube account. Go check it out. Dude, shout out to Justin. I couldn't miss Justin, man. You had an epic, old school, powerful afro for a lot of those times I ran into you. And Justin's also very tall, so I would just see this glorious head of hair out in the crowd that looked like it was from the 1970s. And you always brighten my day, man. And I want to tell a story. We were at a show at what was that place called? Master's Chambers, where they would have really cool bands come through. And I forget what show it was. I saw a lot of shows there. Mortiferum. What's that other band? Fetid. Or was that the same show? I think it might have been that show, man. And Spirit Adrift had just put out a record where I was doing some like different vocal type stuff, maybe Divided, maybe Curse, I don't know. But I remember, Justin, you walked up to me and said, you know, he gave me props or whatever, and he said, dude, you've pretty much done all kinds of like metal vocal styles. Are you ever gonna do like a King Diamond vocal? And I remember being like, dude, I don't know. I don't know. He's like, that's the only thing you haven't done yet. And that always stuck in my mind, bro. And when we did the new record, listen to Hanged Man's Revenge, because I did a King Diamond thing. Or you could say Rob Halford thing. Rob Halford, like Painkiller era. And I'm not saying I'm as good as those guys at it, but I think I pulled it off. I was definitely going for that style. And I did that partially because my friend Justin from Phoenix asked me if I was ever going to do a King Diamond. And that stayed with me for years, man. I just like having fun with this shit, and I like pushing myself. So thank you, Justin. You gave me the motivation to try something scary and difficult and potentially humiliating, and I love it. That's one of my favorite parts of the last Spirit Adrift album. So thanks, man. I hope you're well. Everybody go check out that Skull Crush demo. All right, last email. Alex. Hi, Nate. I'm digging the live album. Fuck Lettuce. Dude, so many people have been messaging me fuck Lettuce. Yeah, we left the banter on the... I kind of went like overly hard with the banter at that show, because that's one of the fun parts of live albums. But I was just talking about how the last time I was in San Antonio, I'd been poisoned by a deadly, whatever, E. coli poisoned batch of lettuce and almost died. And so I think somebody in the crowd actually said, fuck lettuce. And you can ask anybody that knows me, I have not eaten lettuce once since that dreaded day in 2017. So yeah, fuck lettuce. Thanks for the support. Okay, Alex says, for the podcast, I was hoping you could talk more about movies. You have good taste. The fact that you named Sorcerer first when thinking of Tangerine Dream soundtracks says a lot. You mentioned on the show that film is important to you, and it seems like something you take seriously as an art form. So it'd be great if you could share more of your thoughts on movies. Speaking of movies, I noticed a few episodes back you said something along the lines of emerging from the dark night of the soul, referring to some of the struggles you'd been working to overcome. That jumped out at me because of the context and the way you were telling your story. So it made me want to ask, have you done any script writing? That phrase, dark night of the soul, is used in a screenwriting book called Save the Cat that I read in film school. It's generally the part of the story when the main character is at their lowest point, and it often motivates the triumphant third act of the movie. Anyway, if you haven't already, would you consider writing a movie or something like that? Seems like you've got stories to tell and you appreciate visual aesthetics. Love to hear your thoughts. If you guys, I'm going to talk about storytelling and writing and how it relates to film and television, but more so just human, you know, the human experience, art and music, and it's all stories, you know. If you guys aren't interested in that, Jungian archetypes and shit like that, you fast forward a little bit because I'm going to do a little review of Chapel of Disease. What the fuck is the album called? The new one, something about light, man. Anyway, if you're not interested, yeah, Echoes of Light. So if you just want to hear that review, go ahead and skip past this. But I'm gonna be making some relevant Big Riff Energy type points here. You said a key phrase in here, man. Stories to tell. That's the thing. Dude, before I was 1 year old, I experienced stuff that gives you stories to tell that most folks wouldn't believe, you know. So movies were like a way of escaping reality, for one thing. Everything that I was drawn to growing up was a way of escaping life for a brief moment. I wasn't aware of that at the time, but I also had like a really overactive imagination, which I think is crucial if you're going to write songs or make movies or write books or anything like that. I think there's such a lack of imagination now. I don't know if that's like the de-evolution of the species because of, you know, the psychic war that is being waged on our attention spans and our biological matter in our brains and stuff like that. But yeah, I just had a super overactive imagination. And I was always enamored by stories, coming up with stories. My grandpa would always tell stories. I had the same teacher and the same classmates, essentially, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And one of the regular things that our teacher would do is bring in this lady, a friend of hers, who would tell us these crazy stories, like folklore type stuff. And she would tell us these fantastical, like Native American stories and different stuff. And she would have little drums or like sound effect stuff she would do. So I just always was fascinated with imagination and stories. And I remember reading like Hatchet. Do you guys remember? I'm going to blast you with nostalgia if you grew up in the 90s or early 2000s. Hatchet, Gary Paulson. I saw this book pop up the other day and it just like explained so much to me. This kid, like, his plane crashes and he has to survive in the woods with just a hatchet. You guys remember that one? So yeah, that stuff was just like always appealing to me, just escaping, going into the imagination, being taken on a journey. And everything, whether it was movies or music or whatever, cartoons, anything that appealed to me, that's what it was doing for me. And I remember seeing movies like from an early age. The first thing I remember seeing was Disney's Halloween Treat, which is a mashup of a bunch of different stuff. Night on Bald Mountain, one of the most evil satanic things ever made to this day. I was always drawn to like spooky stuff. I remember seeing Predator real young. Terminator 2, one of the first movies I ever saw. Halloween. I love being freaked out, you know. And then the music I was drawn to is the same stuff. Jimi Hendrix, what a freaky experience some of his records are. Black Sabbath. It was all just taking me out of the suffering of mundane life. And just fun, just taking you into the imagination, you know. You talk about Dark Night of the Soul and stuff like that. You figure out later as you sort of experience more life and how art relates to life. You know, Joseph Campbell, what is it, Hero with 1,000 Faces or whatever. There's just certain archetypes in life, and there's certain stories that just resonate with people because they're universal to the human experience, regardless of what time period you're in, regardless of where you are geographically or whatever. Carl Jung had his own archetypes, different types of people. Trickster and warrior. I don't know if the warrior is one. I don't have it in front of me. But yeah, I was always fascinated by that, man. And I was actually I was into movies and stuff like that before I really got hard into music. But all the movies that I loved had great music. Terminator 2, the Terminator theme is like still one of my favorite pieces of music. I mine that thing for intervals and note choices and stuff still all the time. The Halloween theme, you know, they tested Halloween before it had music on it and it wasn't scary. You put that music on it and it's like a whole other thing. So the two are always kind of like inseparable to me. That is just an experience of being a part of this story, being taken on a journey or whatever. But I have a distinct memory of being really, really young and somebody somewhere, some adult asking me what I wanted to do when I grew up. And all the adults laughed because I said, I want to be a screenwriter. And they were like, how the fuck do you know what that is? Like, I was like really young. And I wrote some stuff when I was a kid, probably like 4th grade, fucking trash, shitty 4th grade writing. Even when I was in 4th grade, I was like, damn, this sucks. So I haven't really written anything since then, man. I know there's I think there's screenwriting apps and stuff you can use to help you put it in the correct format. I will say I keep getting these $1 million ideas. I have 2 of them. I have more than 2 of them, but I have 2 ideas that feel similar to when I get a seed of a song. Like sometimes I'll just get one riff and I know, oh, that's a whole song. That's a whole song and it's going to be a great song off of just one riff. And I have a couple of ideas for movies where it's just a premise and it's that same feeling of I can already see the roots springing out of this seed to become this whole thing. And they're both like $1 million ideas, dude. If people think Ari Aster is a genius, anybody can write a horror movie or a spooky movie or A24 style movie. Yeah, I watch Ari Aster's movies and I'm like, wow, he's winning all these awards. People think he's a genius. People think he's legit student of the horror genre. And yeah, it's wide open. If that's the standard, the fucking thing, the field is wide open, dude. It's yeah, but there's only so much time, you know. I'm always working on music, so I don't know. I'm gonna crank a couple albums out with this new thing and see what happens, and maybe I'll have some time. I don't know. I need to hit up some friends of mine in the biz. I got some friends who are like pretty well respected filmmakers or at least involved. So when I decide to do it, I'll do it. There was something else I wanted to address here. Okay, yeah. The writing thing, man. The writing thing. It's I feel like a storyteller or a writer is like a sacred position for humanity. And my wife and I have been watching Yellowstone lately. I feel like what happened once Hollywood started disintegrating because everybody realized they're whatever pedophiles or Harvey Weinstein people, and that Hollywood is kind of obsolete and it's not even necessary to be attached to it physically or in a business sense in order to succeed in filmmaking or television. I think one of the results was that a lot of the talent got pushed from movies into television. You know, movies are all like the same Marvel movie, just like steadily, the quality steadily eroding over time. You know, That's movies now. They all fucking suck. There was like 2 real actual movies made last year, and it was such a big deal that it like was a worldwide meme phenomenon. So I think a lot of the talent with the writing, actors and stuff like that got pushed into television, probably starting around the time of like Sopranos, Breaking Bad, but especially now. But I think irrelevant of whether it's a film or television or whatever, there are these people that it seems that they were appointed to like find absolute truth about being human. And whether they write novels or they write songs or whatever, they all have that like calling in common. And taking Yellowstone, for example, the guy that writes that is this dude, Taylor Sheridan, who is a real life, like old school man, like real cowboy, almost looks like he's got a little bit more like primate DNA in him. Grew up in North Texas, real actual cowboy. So you wouldn't think that he would have that much in common with, say, William Friedkin, who grew up an impoverished Jewish American kid in the inner cities of Chicago, whose biggest aspiration was to play basketball. You wouldn't think those guys would have that much in common with Milch, who wrote NYPD Blue and Deadwood. Now, this dude, he grew up on the East Coast, hyper intellectual guy, went to Ivy League school, was like impressing everybody. Even the people teaching writing were like, "You're the best writer I've ever seen." His dad was a doctor to the mafia, you know, and this guy was like complete lunatic on acid and breaking the law, and just like a hyper intellectual, literal genius, Ivy Leaguer, you know. You wouldn't think those guys would all have that much in common. But they do. Alan Moore, right? A fucking shamanic mystic dude from, where's he from? Birmingham, England? He's from England for sure. Like on surface level, these people are from completely different backgrounds and upbringings, and they have different interests and different passions. But there's something about like a real honest to God writer or storyteller that goes deeper than all of that stuff. And that is what's super exciting to me about whatever it is I'm appreciating, whether it's movies or TV or music. It's like these people that are, that's a real big riff energy to me. Anybody can write a really cool riff. Anybody can write like a good one-liner, "I'll be back," or whatever, "Get to the chopper," you know. Anybody can write shit like that. But what's really special to me, and what the stuff that lasts and the stuff that truly resonates with people, is when somebody's trying to like get at what the fuck is going on, like the inherently abstract, terrifying, joyful essence of just like being alive. And that's really like the only stuff I'm interested in. I think John Carpenter does that. I think all the guys I just mentioned did that. Even like Sylvester Stallone, first Rocky movie. James Cameron, a lot of his shit's goofy as hell, but there's something in Terminator 2 about like, there's that essence of the human condition in there, you know. Roger Waters writing lyrics for Pink Floyd, Geezer Butler writing lyrics for Black Sabbath. And here's another thing that has that. Chapel of Disease, the new record, Echoes of Light. So Chapel of Disease, their last record was a favorite of mine that year it came out. Pretty straightforward death metal, but with a lot of melody, a lot of really epic, memorable guitar playing, and twists and turns, and sophisticated writing that's not found in a lot of current death metal. They have progressed over the course of their career. These guys are from Germany, by the way. I forget who put the record out. Maybe Van Records. Like I said, guys, yeah, Van Records. I don't sit here and prepare for this shit. I just go. So I would liken, I'm not going to say this new album sounds like Tribulation. Maybe it does a little bit here and there. I hear a little bit of later period Tribulation, but also like Red Album, Blue Album period Baroness, maybe that sort of thing. A lot of just serpentine, melodic, intertwining guitar lines and yeah, interesting guitar playing that leans melodic. But I don't think it necessarily sounds like Tribulation. I would liken the evolution of the last few albums of Chapel of Disease to the evolution that Tribulation went through, starting with maybe Children of the Night all the way up to their last EP. You know, they just started focusing more on like writing songs instead of these big, long, sprawling death metal movements. You know, it's a little bit more of like songs. There are some long, progressive, ambitious songs on this new Chapel of Disease, but yeah, just more of more melodic sensibilities for sure. I hate to say, I like to focus on what I like, and I don't like to focus on what I don't like, but I have to keep it real. The singer started introducing clean vocals on this album, and some of them are okay, but when they first show up, I think it's like track 3 maybe. Man, clean vocals are hard. I'll just say that. And I want to reiterate that I would much rather a band or musician try something interesting than just crank out the same unremarkable, boring shit. Like, hey, Siri, write me a song with the most generic Kerry King riffs ever written and nothing that really stands out or takes any major risks or is remarkable in any sense. Boom, new song by the band Kerry King. Like, I would much rather somebody try to do something crazy and maybe not pull it off as well as they could have, or maybe it's just weird or something. I would much rather that. I have way more respect for that, so I will acknowledge that. I don't want to criticize this dude for trying clean vocals at all. I think that's awesome. The balls that it takes, like, you guys have no idea. The shit is hard. It's scary. You're going to get judged. There's just like so much more there when you're doing clean vocals for you to fail at, and for it to not, like when you're doing extreme vocals, there's so much more to hide behind. It's like playing clean guitar, like playing an acoustic guitar, like fucking finger picking the America the Beautiful, like your boy Post Malone did. There's nothing to hide behind, man. When you're playing distorted guitar, you don't even have to be that good. You can trick people. When you're screaming, who even knows if you're doing a good job, you know? But when you're singing notes with a clean, actual singing voice, it's so much harder, man. It's so I would never want to like make this guy feel bad or criticize it too much, but I will say when they first appear, it ain't quite there for me. It's not quite there. There are clean vocals later in the album that I think are better. And I think part of the issue when those clean vocals first pop up is the melody is not really like fully established. And I know what was a super helpful tool for me in the past was what Ozzy talked about doing during Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. You fucking sit there with a keyboard. I have this little MIDI controlled keyboard right here, which I've been using on this new stuff. And you can sit there and listen to the music that you're trying to sing over and just pick out with one finger, figure out a really good melody. And I think, man, this album is so good. I feel like it should have gotten that extra time and attention. I don't know if maybe they were on a tighter schedule or something like that, deadlines. But you gotta fucking, if you're gonna sing, you gotta know what you're singing. You gotta know exactly what the fuck you're singing, and you gotta sing it, and you gotta do it until it's fucking awesome. You gotta do it until it's awesome. I don't care if you're sick to death of your own record. I get that. Live, you get one shot. But when you're making a record, you can do something as many times as you want to. So other than that, honestly, I'll give this record a 9 out of 10. It would be a 10 out of 10. He's trying something new, man, and respect, all the respect. I don't hate it. I just feel like it's not quite there. And a lot of that is a thing of just when you're trying something new like that, it's a confidence thing. I've been through that. I can't even stand to listen to early Spirit Adrift stuff. It just wasn't there, man. But hey, the more you do it, I think it's worth doing. I would much rather hear a clean vocal in a sort of death metal, psychedelic black metal, extreme metal leaning thing. I would much rather hear a clean vocal that's shaky or not fully realized than just more of the same boring, faceless, unremarkable bullshit. So please don't take this as me trying to discourage anybody from doing that or criticizing this guy. I'm just keeping it real with the review. I'm sure this record will be on my year-end list. It's phenomenal. Like musically, phenomenal. So many cool, fun guitar parts. Excellent rhythm section. 90% of the vocals are totally dialed in. All the death metal style vocals are dialed. A lot of the clean vocals are great. There's nothing wrong with them. Just the only reason I'm saying this is for the people that are going to check this out. If the clean vocals show up and you're not feeling it, just keep going. Keep going. That's why I'm saying this. It's not to rain on the guy's parade or anything like that. Just keep going because it's worth listening to the whole thing. And yeah, respect to Chapel of Disease for doing their own thing, man. That's the most important thing. They're telling a story sonically that no one else is telling. And most people don't have the balls to try clean vocals. I'll put it that way. It's hard, man. Look at that fucking train wreck of a Super Bowl halftime show. Those people are like millionaires and they can't even fucking sing. So it ain't easy. All right. Yeah. Subscribe if you enjoyed this and write me some questions at bigriffenergy@gmail.com. Hope you learned something, and I hope Kerry King doesn't show up roid raging on me, man. I'm just speaking the truth. And the truth has a certain ring to it, doesn't it? Okay, see you next week, y'all. Thanks.